Hey, honey. Hey, honey. Welcome in. Welcome in. Welcome to another episode of Ashley Loves True Crime, honey. Now, listen, this isn't just another true crime podcast. This is where the story meets the mind. We talk about the cases you've heard about, the psychology behind them, and the hard truth folks don't always want to face. Mental health, morality, and what really happens when anger goes unchecked. No shock bait, no rushing past the pain, just real conversation told with care. So, if you're like me and you love true crime and you need it thoughtful, honest, and a little deeper, go on and pull up a seat. This is True Crime Honey Style. This episode is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice. All individuals are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Information is based on publicly available court records and statements. Tonight's cited sources come from Wikipedia.com, H. Holmes, biography, serial killer, murderer, H. Holmes, crime museum. So as I said, welcome in everybody. We're going to do a little admin before we get started. Tonight's episode is going to be called The Devil You Know Is Your Neighbor. So just a little admin. Like I said, if you don't want to hear the admin, you can always skip 5 minutes into the episode, skip past that and go to it. But, this week has been a little hectic for me. I had a couple of important tests to take. I had a couple of things to do around the city. And from some reason, only by the grace of God, I was able to complete everything that I was supposed to do. I'm just so happy that tomorrow is Friday, and do some other errands. At least it's Friday, and I'm happy for the weekend to end. Today is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, so we want to say happy birthday to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. for all the things that he has done for the civil rights movement, for immigration. A lot of things would have not been moved and the needle would have not been turned had it not been for people like MLK to step in the gap and step in the need, and do those things legally that we need to make sure that the United States stays the home of the brave and the land of the free. I don't even know where to begin. How can I say it? Things that have been going on in the world. It's just been one thing after the next. And hold on, I want to give Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. his needed, you know, uh, MLK was just one of those people that we read about, we learn about, and we study in school. But, I implore people to really look into his life. No matter what society has to say about him, he did make a total impact a lot of people's lives, including mine. I went to a HBCU. I was able to, you know, not have to worry about a lot of the things that my grandparents had to worry about, or even, my mother had to worry about as she was growing up. And I always tell people, if you want to know how far we are from slavery, just speak to somebody that is of another race and ask them, especially in the black community, ask them how close in close proximity do they know somebody in their family that either was an indentured slave or was a slave. And they could probably name at least 2 to 3 generations just backwards and name that person that worked either in the cotton field or worked for other people, and was indentured slaves. And it's not that far from now, so we've got a long way to go. And so yeah, that's my little admin again. Happy Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. I know people are going to be celebrating all through the week. Monday is Martin Luther King Jr.'s actual day. So I hope everybody enjoys that day off. But, as you're enjoying that day off, sort of keep in mind and really research and look into all the things that the civil rights movement really helped usher in, and just really take a look at the state of where we are now in America, and just think about, do we really want to go back to how things were before women being able to vote, and women and men of all races and creeds being able to participate in free election. You know, these things are not far from where we are today. So that was my little admin for the day. We're going to go ahead and get into it. It's called The Devil You Know Is Your Neighbor. The city was alive, electric lights glowing. For the very first time, the sound of music drifting through the World's Fair, millions of people pouring in with wide eyes and big dreams. They came for progress, they came for wonder. And somewhere in the middle of all that excitement, a monster was building a house. Not just any house, but a place to confuse, control, and quietly erase people. His name was Dr. Henry Howard Holmes. But that wasn't the name he was born with. Before the headlines, the rumors, the whispers of screams behind locked doors, he was just Herman Webster Mudgett, a charming, intelligent man who learned early on how easy it was to lie without blinking. He learned how to wear kindness like a costume. And most importantly, he learned how much people trusted a man who called himself a doctor. That trust would cost them their lives. Holmes arrived in Chicago at the perfect time. The World's Fair brought crowds, travelers, young women looking for work, people who didn't have family nearby to notice if they went missing. Holmes saw opportunity where others saw celebration, and he built his trap right in plain sight, a 3-story building on the corner of 63rd and Wallace. To neighbors, it looked like a hotel. To employees, it was a maze. Doors that opened to brick walls, staircases that led nowhere, rooms that locked from the outside. Some say they were trap doors. Some say gas lines. Others say bodies slid down chutes into the basement. And while historians argue about what was real and what was exaggerated, people were disappearing. Holmes didn't need brute force. He offered jobs, romance, safety. Women moved in and were never seen again. Children trusted him and paid the price. When you hear a story like H.H. Holmes, it messes with your head because you start asking questions folks don't like sitting with. Was he born evil or was he made that way? Some people want to call him the devil incarnated. Others want to trace it back to his childhood, to pain, abuse, and cruelty that started long before Chicago ever knew his name. The truth is, it might just be both. Holmes was born May 16, 1861, in a tiny, isolated town called Glimpton, New Hampshire. His real name was Herman Webster Mudgett. His parents were deeply religious, strict to the bone. Obedience wasn't encouraged, it was demanded. His mother was cold and distant, using religion more like a rule book than a comfort. His father drank, and when he disciplined, he crossed into violence. We're talking isolation, food withheld, fear used as control. There were even accounts of his father holding kerosene-soaked rags over the children's mouth to silence them. And when Herman needed somewhere to escape, he ran into the woods. Out there alone, he started doing things no child should be curious about. He dissected animals, first small ones, then bigger ones. Dead things didn't scare him. They fascinated him. And that fascination stuck. At school, he wasn't popular. He was smart, awkward, and bullied for it. One incident followed him for the rest of his life. Classmates shoved him into a doctor's office and pressed a human skeleton's hand over his face. Instead of fear, It sparked curiosity. Later, Holmes would say that moment was the beginning. By the time he reached adulthood, lying came easy. So did manipulation. He married young, not for love, but for money. Then left his wife and child behind to attend medical school at the University of Michigan. Using her family's money to get there, and that's where things escalated. Holmes began stealing bodies from graves and morgues. He sold cadavers, used them in insurance scams, took out policies under fake names, then collected the money using unrecognizable corpses as proof of death. It worked because he looked trustworthy. He was handsome, charming, soft-spoken. He married again and again, sometimes having multiple wives in different cities who had no idea the others existed. He convinced women to take out life insurance policies with his name as the beneficiary. And when they disappeared, he always had a story ready. A reason, an excuse, a lie that sounded just believable enough. By 1884, he earned his medical degree and took on the name that would live in infamy, Dr. Henry Howard Holmes. And that title, doctor, was the perfect disguise. It gave him access, it gave him authority, and it gave him cover. Because people trust doctors. And when Holmes knew exactly how to use that trust and how to destroy anyone who gave it to him. And when the money ran out, when the lies caught up, Holmes had another plan up his sleeves: insurance. One of the most chilling betrayals involved a man named Benjamin Pitzel, a business partner who trusted Holmes completely. Holmes convinced him to fake his own death for an insurance payout. Instead, Holmes killed him. And then, as if it wasn't enough, he murdered Pitzel's children, one by one, while their mother waited, believing her husband was still alive. That's not just murder. That's calculation. That's cruelty. That's someone who felt nothing. Eventually, Holmes was caught, not because of the bodies, but because of the money, fraud, paper trails, lies stacked too high to hold. When police finally closed in, Holmes confessed, then changed his story, then changed it again. 27 victims, maybe 29, maybe more. Even in death, he couldn't stop manipulating the truth. In 1896, H. Holmes was hanged, but legend doesn't die quietly. Some say his body was buried in concrete so he couldn't be dug up or escape one last time. Others say his ghost still lingers in Chicago, tied forever to a building that no longer stands, but is never really gone. In the early morning hours of May 7, 1896, H. Holmes was led from his cell inside Mohan Singh prison in Philadelphia. A man newspapers had once called the devil incarnated looked very different from the charming doctor who fooled so many. Witnesses describe him as calm, almost detached. Holmes was dressed neatly, as even in death, appearance still mattered. When asked if he had any final words, Holmes didn't offer remorse. He didn't confess. He didn't even beg. Instead, he complained that the hood placed over his head was too tight. At approximately 10:13 a.m., the trapdoor was released, but death didn't come quickly for Holmes. Holmes' neck did not break, meaning he died slowly by strangulation. A process lasted more than 15 minutes. Witnesses later reported visible movement long after the drop. He officially was pronounced dead at 10:50 a.m. He was 34 years old. Holmes made one final unsettling request before his execution. He asked to be buried 10 feet deep, encased in concrete, fearing that grave robbers might steal his body, the same fate he had inflicted on others. The request was granted. No headstone, no marker, just concrete. Before we end tonight, I want to sit with something that's uncomfortable but important. When you look at a man like H.H. Holmes, it's real easy to call him evil, to label him a monster, and keep it at arm's length. But the truth asks more of us than that. Because Holmes didn't come from nowhere. He was a little boy once, raised in fear, ruled by cruelty, taught obedience without love, a child who ran into the woods to escape pain and found comfort around dead things instead of living ones. Now listen, that explains him, but it doesn't excuse him. The Bible tells us, train up a child in the way he should go. Proverbs 22:6. But what happens when a child is trained in fear instead of faith, in punishment instead of protection? Pain doesn't automatically turn someone evil, but unattended pain can become a doorway. And the enemy loves an open door. Scripture warns us Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. 2 Corinthians 11:14. Holmes didn't look like darkness. He looked like a doctor, a husband, a man you could trust. And that's the truth that should sober us. Because evil doesn't always arrive loud. Sometimes it grows quiet, patient, polished. Faith doesn't mean we deny the darkness in the world. It means we stay rooted enough to recognize it. Compassion without discernment can become dangerous, and discernment without compassion can harden the heart. God calls us to walk the narrow road, loving deeply, but seeing clearly. So, if this story stirred something in you tonight, that ache, that unease, don't ignore it. That's wisdom. That's the Spirit reminding you that light matters, truth matters, and guarding your heart matters. Because while darkness is real, it is never stronger than the light. And it never will be. Please be advised that I record live every Thursday and upload new episodes every Monday. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I look forward to reading your comments down below. Did you learn something new about H.H. Holmes? Have you ever had an encounter with an unsavory person who on the outside appeared good, but something was just not quite right? Do you know the story of H.H. Holmes? Are demons made or created? Comment down below. Until next time, stay prayerful. Stay discerned, stay covered, and most importantly, stay sweet, honeys.